All right, Dave, let's move on to Strikeforce. You mentioned there's a card on Saturday. It's sort of that weird promotion that's owned by the UFC or the parent company of the UFC that is either winding down or they're still going to use it as a feeder league or something. What's the big fight or two out of that one?
Well, the main fight on that card is finally the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix will come to an end. This is a tournament that started in February of 2011, and we will finally see an end to it on May 19th of 2012. Josh Barnett will face Daniel Cormier in the main event, and the winner of that fight will be crowned the Strikeforce Grand Prix champion.
And then what?
Well, yeah, exactly. And then what? Part of the deal with Strikeforce staying on Showtime is that the winner of the Grand Prix has to fight once more for Strikeforce against a heavyweight, whoever that may be. The problem is, there are no other heavyweights in Strikeforce because when the UFC purchased the promotion, they brought all the heavyweights from Strikeforce into the UFC except for Barnett and Cormier. But part of the deal that allowed Strikeforce to continue as an organization was under the condition that, well, Showtime had invested so much in this tournament, we want to see the winner fight at least once more on Showtime. So you have a guy who's going to win the tournament and have to fight once more for Strikeforce against, honestly, nobody really knows at this point because the MMA heavyweights, the best heavyweights in the game right now, are in the UFC. There's really nobody outside the UFC that could fight the winner of this Grand Prix, and then the loser of the Grand Prix probably just goes right to the UFC. So winning the Grand Prix might not even be all that good.
So, and I think we touched on this on the program as well. So if they're looking for a heavyweight, chances are it's not going to be a guy from the UFC loaned over. It's going to be maybe a name from the past, or it's not going to be an up-and-coming guy, or it could be a guy like, we've mentioned this, the old battle-tested Russian.
Yeah, it could be Fedor Emelianenko, but I think that's a real long shot at this point, just based on the contract that would have to be put together for this one
fight.
Time,
yeah.
You know, his management company always wants the co-promotion. That's not going to fly anymore. I would be very surprised to see Fedor Emelianenko be that next heavyweight to fight the winner of the Grand Prix. But really, I think he would be the best option. But at this point, you know, I think James Thompson, a guy that beat Bobby Lashley in a horrible fight last Sunday in India, is more likely than Fedor at this point, although Thompson would just be kind of a waste. You could bring back Andrei Arlovsky, who lost at the beginning of this tournament back in February of last year. There are a few guys out there at heavyweight that could be brought in, but none that I think would really pose any kind of challenge to the winner of this heavyweight Grand Prix, either Cormier or Barnett. They are both top 10 heavyweights in the game, and there's nobody top 10 for them to challenge themselves with outside of the UFC. All the best fighters are in the UFC, so you know I think that they're going to have another fight for the winner of the Grand Prix on Showtime in Strikeforce, but there's not going to be much of a point to it.
He is Dave Simon. You can catch him on Ringside Report Radio Wednesdays and Fridays right here on TSN 990, right after the Stanley Cup playoffs this coming Wednesday, potentially around 10:30 or so. Dave Simon MMA on Twitter.com or RingsideReport.net is the website, including his monthly top 10 rankings.
Yeah. Is this going to be on GamePointsRadio.com?
Well, you know, Stefano's busy putting together the Zurkowski interview, the Ramon Guzman interview. If you intimidate him enough, absolutely, it should be there.
All right, it will be there. It's not hard to intimidate him.